The evening was fun. We had dinner at a nice restaurant, and then decided to change things up a bit and went to dance at a bar we had never been to before, the Foggy Beach Bar. We both worked in a more prestigious place further from the city center. We've heard the drinks at Foggy Beach are fair, the music is good, and the dance floor is big. I never got tired of spending time with her, and this evening was no exception. In fact, he was even more cheerful than usual because she had been drinking. Usually, she drinks no more than 2 glasses in an evening, but this time she drank 4. I don't know what made her drink like that night, but like I said, it was fun. She was a fun drunk, and I wondered how her drunkenness would affect our sex that night. I was looking forward to finding out. We both loved to dance and danced a lot. As usual, when we went out somewhere, several men tried to ask her to dance, and as always, she refused everyone. When we left the bar, she tried to put on her coat, hit herself on the head with her purse when she picked it up, then tried to put her hand into the coat sleeve, but she couldn't, and she began to get angry. Then she tripped on the way out and fell into my arms. I caught her, and she looked at me. She stumbled a couple more times, but we made it to the car. "You are my husband, right?" she asked as I tried to get her into the car. I started to think that there probably won't be sex today. "Yes, I'm your husband," I said, laughing. "I slept with Tyler Jones," she said and giggled. "What did you say?" I looked at her, but she had already fallen asleep. I brought her home and put her to bed. I've undressed her many times over the past 3 years, and I'm always amazed at how good her figure is. She liked to sleep naked, so I left her like that. But today there was something different. As I undressed her, I couldn't help but think what Tyler Jones, whoever he was, could have done to her. I hardly slept that night, and she slept like the dead. She didn't wake up until noon the next day. I just made myself another cup of coffee. Although cooked is too strong a word. I simply inserted the capsule into the coffee machine and pressed the button, and the coffee poured into my cup. Then I added some Baileys and sat at the kitchen island sipping my coffee. This was already the 4th cup of the day. I usually limit myself to 2. Lenny, short for Lenore, walked into the kitchen, still naked. She inserted her capsule into the coffee machine, placed the cup under the dispenser, and waited for it to fill. When the cup was full, she took it and sat down on the stool next to me. We sat in silence, each immersed in our own thoughts, drinking coffee. I spoke first. "Who is Tyler Jones?" "What? Who is Tyler Jones?" I don't know." "Are you sure?" She just looked at me. "Why?" I took another sip of my coffee before answering. "Because yesterday, before you passed out, you said you slept with him." "What?" "You said you slept with him." "Andy," that's what she called me, Andy, short for Andrew. "I don't even know what you're talking about." "I knew Lenny for almost 4 years. We've been married for the last 3, well, almost 3 years. I was a bartender, and still am, to be exact. She was a waitress at the same establishment. I worked there for over a year before she came. We tried to work the same shifts, but it didn't always work out that way. Sometimes I worked during the day, and she worked at night, and vice versa. Shortly after she started working there, we went on our first date. Less than a month later, we slept together for the first time and have been having sex at least 4 times a week ever since. I just looked at her. She spoke up. "Damn it, I was drunk, and we both know enough about drunks to know that they tend to say whatever they want. And most of what they say is true," I thought. We sat in silence, finishing our coffee. "I'll go get dressed," she said irritably, took our cups and, as usual, washed them and put them on the drying rack. I always loved watching her do it, but that morning she washed them with more energy, which made her breast sway more, but it didn't bring me pleasure. In my thoughts, I saw Tyler Jones. We didn't talk much that day or that evening at work. Some people find that living and working together puts a lot of strain on a marriage, but in our case, it didn't seem to be a problem. Until this moment. The next 2 days were the same. Little communication, no touching, and no sex. At work, it seemed to me that Lenny spent more time with some clients than necessary, but perhaps that was just my imagination. Finally, I said, "Okay, I've had enough. I either want our life back or this marriage is over." "I agree," said Lenny. "I'm tired of you looking at me like you're waiting for me to take the next client out and sleep with him. So say what's on your mind." "Okay? In vino veritas." "What?" "There is truth in wine." Almost every civilized culture has a saying like this, because they have all become convinced of the fact, Lenny, that what comes out of the mouths of children and drunks is the truth. You said, "I slept with Tyler Jones." You had no reason to say it, and I've never implied that you've slept with anyone else since we got married, but it came out clear as day from your drunken mouth. I slept with Tyler Jones. If it was before our wedding, that's okay, but if it wasn't, then we have a problem. Then we have a problem because I don't know why I said it, or even if I said it. What do you mean? Did you say? Of course you said it. Why would I pick that name out of thin air and lie about something like that? Explain why I should trust you, Andy. It's obvious that you don't believe me, so we have a stalemate, she said. Yes, I think so. The stalemate continued for another week. For the first time since the beginning of our relationship, we did not have sex. We each had a car. Old models because we were saving for a house, but I was going to surprise her with a new car for Christmas. That week, because of our impasse, we went to work separately. On Thursday, when I arrived at work, I kept waiting for her to show up, but there was another waitress working her usual tables. I called the night manager. "Gil, why is Katie working on Lenny's tables?" "Because she called in the morning and took the day off." "She didn't tell me anything about it," I replied. "Maybe you should communicate better." We were very busy, and I couldn't call her, so I waited until it was calmer. When I took a break, I called her. No answer. Directly forwarded to voicemail. It was already 9:30 in the evening, and she was not answering the phone. I watched as Gil walked towards me. "Gil, Lenny isn't answering the phone. I think I need to go home and find out what's going on." "That's a good idea. She just called and quit. She said she wouldn't come back again. I have to go." I was already calling her when I took my coat from the hook and buttoned it up, preparing for the cold air. She still didn't answer. I opened the door to our apartment and entered. She wasn't there. After searching the apartment, I realized that some of her things and her cosmetic bag were missing. It was almost midnight when I called her parents. "Have you heard anything from Lenny?" I asked when her father answered. "Yes, we heard." "Where is she?" "Most likely at Charlotte's, Andy." "What's happening?" I briefly told him the essence of the matter. "You have to deal with her before it's too late." I called Charlotte. She and Lenny had been best friends since they were 3. There was no answer, so I left a message. "Ask Lenny to call me back." Obviously, the deadlock was broken, and she made the first move. I kept going over in my head what I could have done differently, but the result was always the same. Nothing. She got drunk and said what she said. I'm sure I reacted the way any husband would react. I lay down on our bed and tried to sleep. It didn't work out. I got up and tried to eat. Also unsuccessful. By mid-morning, I called her brother. "Sorry, Andy. The only thing I can tell you is that you screwed up big time." I called Charlotte again. "Hi, Andy," she said. "Have you heard anything from Lenny?" I heard. "Do you know where she is?" "She is here with me." "Not now. She is very angry and upset that you don't believe her." "When do I not believe her? When does she say she slept with him, or when does she deny it?" "Don't be an ass." "A donkey. What should I do? Tell me, what should I do?" "You can trust her." "Damn it, I just asked you, should I believe her when she confesses or when she denies? You need to get a grip, Andy, or your marriage is over." "Pull yourself together." She started it. She has to prove to me that she didn't sleep with this guy. "How do you think she should do this?" "Don't know. Take a lie detector, swear on the Bible, anything. Anything. I don't care how. The main thing is that she proves it." "Nonsense. Maybe you should prove that she really did it. Innocent until proven guilty, right?" "But damn it, she confessed. I'm telling you, get a grip, Andy, or your marriage will end." And she hung up. "Maybe you should prove that she did it. is what Charlotte said. At 11 o'clock, I called work. Gil wasn't there, but the manager on duty was. I told him the whole story and told him that I needed to take a vacation. He was already partially aware through Gil. How long do you need? At least for a week, maybe more. I need to figure this out. Well, you and Lenny were supposed to switch to day shifts next week, but we'll manage somehow. Take 2 weeks. We will count this as a vacation. If we need more, we'll discuss it with Gil. The first 2 days I racked my brains, trying to figure out how to live in this new reality. I tried to call her several times, but to no avail. Charlotte's words, "Maybe you should prove she did it," stuck in my mind. I came up with a plan. It was a desperate plan, but still a plan. I went to the library and started looking for yearbooks from all the schools that graduated during the years she and I graduated, plus the 2 years before and after. I read every page, looking for any mention of the name Tyler Jones. It took 3 full days, but I found 3. At home, I checked online to see if their schools had reunion committees. It turned out there is. They even provided biographies of all the graduates, where they are now and what they are doing. Most even had information about their place of work. The first Tyler Jones worked in Washington, D.C., so it would be difficult to talk to him. His biography stated that after graduation he entered Ohio State University, and immediately after graduation he went to Washington for an internship with some members of Congress. The other 2 still lived in our area. One of them sold cars, and the name of the car dealership was listed in the bio. I've heard that some car salesmen change jobs frequently, just like truck drivers, so I wasn't sure if he was still working at the dealership that was listed in his bio. I was standing in the customer service area of the dealership that was listed as Tyler Jones' place of business. One of the mechanics was walking by, and I asked him if Tyler Jones was still working there. It turned out that yes. Then I asked the same mechanic to show it to me if he was there now. He wasn't on the sales floor at the time, but he was outside talking to a potential buyer. I thanked the mechanic and left. I knew I was taking a risk, but I left and returned shortly before they were supposed to close. I was lucky he was still there. When he left, I followed him. He stopped at a local bar not far from the car dealership and went inside. I waited a few minutes and followed him. There was an empty seat next to him, and I sat down. As happens between men in a bar, we started talking. "I'm Andy Buckles," I said, holding out my hand for a handshake. I watched his face to see if he recognized the name. "Tyler Jones," he said. We spent a couple of hours chatting and buying each other drinks. This continued for 2 more evenings. Drink and chat. This guy was smooth as butter. I got the impression that he could talk anyone into doing anything. I'm sure he sold a lot of cars. He was funny, smart, and handsome. I almost liked it. I decided that too many nights in a row might feel weird, so I took a break. I was still on vacation and decided to track down the 3rd Tyler Jones. This guy was a TV news producer, but I couldn't get on TV to see him. I made a copy of his graduation photo, and as with the other Tyler Jones, I began keeping an eye on him at work to identify him. After 2 evenings of observation, after 9 in the evening, I finally recognized him. He gained about 100 pounds, but it was still him. A car was waiting for him at the exit, and he got into it. I saw him lean over and kiss the driver. Then they broke away from each other and kissed again. As the driver began to pull out, he turned his head to look back at the road. At that moment, I completely ruled out Tyler Jones as a possible lover for my wife. So I went back to the first Jones. During our bar conversations, I learned that he had been divorced for almost 3 years and had 2 children. The divorce, he said, was his fault. He had a drinking problem and his wife couldn't take it anymore, so she kicked him out. He missed his children and rarely saw them. Now he was still drinking, but he claimed that since his divorce he had never been drunk again. He assumed that he used to drink so much because his wife was driving him crazy. She was hot and the sex with her was great, but she made him crazy, so I drank a lot, he said. He is much happier now without being married. "Look at the show Sheriff Andy Griffith," he said. "Everyone there was happy, except one. Do you know why? They were all alone. The only unfortunate one was Audie's, and he was married, so he was drunk all the time. At some point, I almost forgot who he was. His personality was so inviting that it seemed that anyone could like him. If any of what he said was true, he had more women than the 5 men I knew, at least according to him. But I still needed to find out if one of these women was my wife, and if so, why did she choose him? Why did she even need to choose someone to have sex with? There was never any indication that she was unhappy with our lives or our intimate relationships. I was certainly not dissatisfied with either one or the other. I knew, of course, that she was getting hit on almost every day at work, but I never had any reason to think that she took it seriously, much less acted on it. I decided it was time to return to work after vacation and called. I was told that I had been transferred to the day shift and could go out the next day. I worked a full shift, and it was nice to be back, although I kept finding myself looking around for Lenny waiting tables. I still tried to talk to her, but to no avail. I began to wonder if she was doing anything to save our marriage. I also began to suspect that she was seeing other men. One evening, I had the day off and decided to go to Charlotte's house and wait outside. Lenny and Charlotte left the house, got into Lenny's car, and drove away. I followed, but got stuck in a traffic jam and lost sight of them. I went back and continued to wait at Charlotte's house. They returned about 3 hours later with a bunch of packages. I got out of the car and approached them. Lenny, we need to talk. The only thing I want to hear from you is an apology. Otherwise, stay away from me and stop following me, or I will file for a protective order against you. Lenny, please listen. I have a couple of options that we can discuss. No, listen to me. Either you apologize or stay away from me. These are the only 2 options that interest me. With these words, they entered the house. I got into the car and drove away. I was still working the day shift and decided to go back to the bar where I spent my evenings with Jones. He was there about half the time I came. I figured he showed up when he had no other entertainment. Several days had passed since I had seen him, and we met like old friends. One evening, we were sitting and watching a couple walk into the bar. We watched because the woman was a real beauty in every way. If there was a perfect body, she would have it. If there was a perfect hairstyle, she would wear it. If there was a perfect dress, she would wear it. Okay, she almost put it on. It revealed more than it covered. Very low cleavage in front and back. So low that her nipples were clearly visible. They almost pierced the fabric of the dress. As the old song goes, she was hotter than a $2 gun. Jones and I didn't say anything. We just watched them walk to their table and sit down. As she sat down, she crossed her legs, and the slit in her dress revealed her leg almost to her hips. I suddenly realized how long it had been since I had seen naked legs. Holy God, Jones whispered barely audibly. Amen, I responded. I've dated quite a few women, but damn, she's probably the most stunning I've ever seen. He called the bartender. Who is this? This is Mike and Vicky Hairston. He's one of those lawyers you see on TV. From time to time, they come here for a couple of cocktails. He just loves to show it to us, the unenlightened. I didn't even pay attention to him because I couldn't take my eyes off her, but now I looked and actually recognized him from his TV commercial. Jones spoke. My ex-wife is no slouch, but the closest thing to such beauty. He nodded towards Vicky Hairston. I came a few months ago. Did you come up? I asked. Yes, I went to a place I had never been to before. The waitress was hot. Not in the same class as Vicky, but hot. The first time everything was fine. We chatted a little, but nothing more. She wore a wedding ring, but that never stopped me. Many married women are looking for something new, even if they don't realize it, and I try to help them by pushing them towards it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I asked her if she was happily married. Of course, but it seems like all we do is work and stay at home. Sometimes we have dinner and dance. So sometimes when he works at night and I work during the day, I go out and have fun. As soon as she told me that, I knew I was going to have sex with her. Women who go out for fun alone when their husbands are at work are my favorites. Subconsciously, they are looking for something new. It's all about timing and opportunity. He took a sip of his drink and continued. By the fourth time I went there, she agreed to meet for a drink. This drinking evening led to other short meetings. We had dinner together a couple of times. We even went dancing. This girl loved to dance. I think she would prefer dancing to sex. And when we danced, oh God. And what's most interesting is that we did the same things that she did with her husband, and it seemed that everything suited her. We had to be careful because of her husband, so we only met when they had different shifts. If he worked during the day, we met at that time. One day, when he was working in the evening, the situation really flared up. I inhaled sharply. Lenny loved to dance, and we did it as often as we could. We even danced at work when there were no visitors. The rest of the staff always watched and applauded. So what happened? I asked. By this point, several other bar patrons had begun to listen to him. He made no effort to keep his voice down and seemed to enjoy the audience's attention. He laughed. We danced one evening. I wanted to get to her. She was a little friendlier than usual, so I just asked her directly. What did you ask about? I asked. Is she ready to have sex? And what did she say? She stopped her movements and thought for a few seconds. I thought I had made a mistake. But then she looked at me and I saw that she had made up her mind. She smiled. I thought you'd never ask, but we only have 3 hours before my husband gets home. Husband, I thought. Lenny always called me hubby. This guy was a true master of manipulation. It seemed to me that he could sell anything to anyone, and perhaps there was some truth in his stories about women. I was starting to dislike his company. We almost ran to my car to get to my apartment as quickly as possible, he continued. 2 more men and 2 women joined his audience. I could understand why men listened to him, but I was surprised that women were interested too. Once we got up there, we didn't waste any time. Was it my wife he was describing? I reached for my drink, downed it in one gulp, and ordered another. I didn't know if I wanted him to continue or not. He didn't care, however. He was clearly on the rise. He paused to take a sip. Damn it, look at me. I'm sweating like a horse just remembering it. I was sweating too, but for a different reason. My sweating was not caused by excitement, but by nervousness. The word she used with him was the one Lenny used sometimes when she teased me. I looked around at the people who were listening to him. 2 men were laughing and 1 couple was arguing. I heard a woman tell her companion that she could do everything that this woman of easy virtue could do, and the man suggested that we go and try it. They quickly left the bar. One man walked up to Jones and patted him on the back. Hey dude, if you're not having sex with this chick anymore, give me her number. Don't have sex. Of course I do. You just won't find someone like her. This caused a new burst of laughter and controversy. One man said that there is no woman worth trying so hard for. The woman next to him slapped his arm and said, Is it true? Well, that means you just lost this one, you idiot. And she ran out of the bar, and he ran after her, trying to convince her that it was a joke. Another man asked where she worked. She doesn't work anywhere now. Took a little break, Jones said. Took a break. Someone shouted. Tell me where she is, and I'll give her this break. Taking a break, Lenny was no longer working as far as I knew. Well, where is she? Asked the other guy. He looked at his watch. She's with her best friend now, but she'll be with me later in the evening. My stomach clenched. You said she was married. Where is her husband? I asked. Probably at home, bored. The crowd around him laughed. I wanted to leave, but at the same time I needed to stay. I took out my phone and called Charlotte. She answered with loud music playing in the background. Hi, Andy. I can't talk now. We're busy. In the background, I heard a voice that sounded a lot like Lenny's. Tell him I expect an apology. There was laughter, and she hung up. Tyler Jones was the popular guy that night and kept talking about his exploits. He entertained his growing audience with stories of his love affairs. The men were delighted, and the women who listened made fun of him and called him super macho. The men wanted to believe him, but the women mostly laughed. He claimed that after the divorce he began to drink less, but sleep with women more. In fact, his best friend was handing out stickers that said, "I slept with Tyler Jones." These stickers were even on the walls of the women's restrooms in some of the less prestigious bars along the waterfront. This comment caught my attention. I excused myself and headed towards the lake. I went straight to the Foggy Coast bar. This was the bar Lenny and I were at the night she said, "I slept with Tyler Jones." I sat down at the bar and, although I didn't need to, ordered a drink. It was already late and the bar was full. I constantly watched the entrance to the women's restroom. The flow of visitors was stable. Finally, the bar began to close. "Finish your drink, buddy. Time to go home," the bartender said, the same words I myself had said many times. I hesitated before speaking. "I have a strange request." "Which?" "I was talking to one friend. His name is Tyler Jones. He said stickers that read, 'I slept with Tyler Jones,' are in women's restrooms at many bars in the area. I don't believe him, so I'd like to see for myself if they are here." The bartender laughed. This idiot, his friend made it as a joke, and for a while these stickers were all the rage. Women who had never heard of it came here and asked for stickers to give to their girlfriends at bachelorette parties and other such events. We still have them on our cubicle doors. "Let's go, I'll show you." We walked up to the women's restroom door, and he knocked to make sure no one was inside. We walked in, and sure enough, 4 of the booths had these stickers on their doors. I breathed a sigh of relief. If Lenny went to the toilet while drunk, sat in one of the stalls, and saw a sticker on the door, then she just wanted to tell me what she saw. This seemed quite logical to me. Lenny has been gone for over a month. Jones said he first had sex with her several months ago and slept with her on and off since then. It couldn't be my Lenny. Jones could probably talk someone into buying a car, but talk a happily married woman into it just for sex. Could he do this? Have sex just for the sake of it and put her marriage at risk? Could she do it? Would she do this? It's all because of the stickers. She saw them and wanted to tell me. I started to feel better. I called Lenny, but she didn't answer again. I called Charlotte. Just like the last time I called, there was loud music playing in the background. "What do you want, Andy?" She sounded a little drunk. "I need to talk to Lenny." "She's not here." "Where is she?" "None of your business." "Is she with someone?" That's none of your business either." "Ask her to call me, please, Charlotte." "Fine. When I see her, I'll tell you." "When will you see her?" "Probably not until tomorrow. Later tonight." Damn, I thought. I wonder if she's just stalling for time or telling the truth. Listen, tell her that if she wants to save this marriage, she should go to the Foggy Coast bar and spend a few minutes there using the women's restroom. What? You heard me. I thought that if she wanted to work on her marriage, she could go there that night. Although if she was with someone. It was almost noon the next day when my phone rang. It was Lenny. I didn't respond, but I read the message she left. I saw the stickers. "I know what happened. Please call me." I turned off the phone and left it switched off. She hasn't spoken to me for weeks, and now it's my turn. I knew she still had the key to our apartment, so I spent the night at the bar. I ignored her calls just like she ignored mine, even though it was painful. I wanted to see her and hug her and tell her I loved her, but I also wanted her to suffer a little. The next day, I was standing at the bar when I heard a familiar voice ordering. I turned around, and it was Lenny in her work uniform. I looked at her. She reached into her apron pocket, pulled out something, and stuck it on her uniform. "I want to have sex with Andy Buckles," the sticker read. She must have been in a hurry to do it so quickly. She wore it all evening and received a lot of jeers, whistles, and shouts of encouragement. Lenny and I smiled at each other every chance we got. Many people, both men and women, encouraged me. "Come on, Andy," or "You're lucky, man," or "Need some help, Andy." More than one guy introduced himself to her as Andy Buckles. Towards the end of the evening, the crowd thinned out. Some employees have already started cleaning. Lenny and I made eye contact. I wiped my hands on a bar towel, and we walked towards each other, meeting on the dance floor. One couple was still dancing, if you could call it dancing. Sorry, I said when we were just inches apart. I reached over, peeled the sticker off her apron, looked at it, smiled, and put it in my pocket. Me too, she said. Shall we dance? With pleasure. We danced for a couple of minutes. When are you going to fulfill what this sticker promises? I asked, clinging to her. She put her hands on my face and kissed me deeply and tenderly. As soon as you get me home and undress me, she said. And then I heard a familiar voice. Here she is. Here's my girl. Here comes Andy. Are you trying to take my girl away, Andy? Lenny and I disconnected and just looked at each other. Her eyes were huge. I take it you know him, I asked her. She didn't answer. Tyler Jones walked up to her, hugged her, and kissed her. After the kiss, he held her at arm's length. I saw her eyes, and there was panic and fear in them as she looked at me. How soon can you get out of here, baby? He asked softly, but loud enough for me and others near us to hear. I need some sex. She stepped towards me. Andy, I raised my hand to stop her. Then he spoke. Well, you got what you wanted. What are you talking about? I took the sticker out of my pocket. You said you wanted to have sex with me, and you definitely did. I crumpled the sticker into a small ball and threw it at her feet. I walked back to the bar and started cleaning up. Andy, please. What's happening? Tyler Jones asked as he walked closer to Lenny. Get away from me, she said, pushing him and walking towards me. Andy, it only happened once. Please talk to me. What are you talking about one time? Jones asked. It was at least 6, and why the hell are you telling Andy about this? Let's go, let's go. Leave me alone. That's not what you said when I had sex with you. I spoke. So this is the same waitress you told me about. Best sex you've ever had? That's it, buddy. Now she wants to pretend to be so unapproachable. She wasn't like that. I didn't take my eyes off Lenny. At Jones's last phrase, she simply fell to the floor, at the place where we both worked. In front of our colleagues and visitors, Jones publicly announced that he had sex with her. He approached her. Are you coming? She shook her head. Well, then to hell with it. You can have her, Andy. She's good, but not that good. No, take it for yourself. I don't need her anymore. No longer needed? Did you sleep with her too? Yes, more than 3 years. She is my wife, but not for long. Your wife? Damn it. I've never seen anyone move so fast in my life. I shouted after him. Hey, come back and get her. Now she's yours. To hell with her. I don't want her. Gil, the night manager, approached her. I think you'd better leave. He motioned for 2 other employees to take her out. I had images of my wife and Jones running through my head, but at the same time there were no thoughts, if that makes sense. I automatically continued to clean the bar counter, trying to cope with my emotions and feelings. Gil came up to me. Go home. Take a vacation. Call when you're ready to come back. I did what he suggested. I went home. When I went inside, I made sure to lock the door. She won't be able to pick up her things until I'm ready. Less than an hour later, I heard someone trying to open the door with their key. Then there was a knock. Andy, please let me in. Leave. You don't live here anymore. Andy, please, at least let me pick up some things. For what? You took your cosmetics when you left, and women of easy virtue don't need any things, so you don't need anything else. I'm not a woman of easy virtue. Oh yes, exactly. They get paid. You did it for fun with someone other than your husband, so I guess that just makes you easy to get. Her voice became louder. I'm not easily accessible. Leave. You can pick up your things tomorrow. Be here at 9, because at 10, whatever's left will go in the trash. Andy, please. Get your cheating ass out of here. There was a knock on the door shortly before 9 the next morning. I looked through the small glass in the door. I didn't see Lenny, but Charlotte was there. I opened the door. "What do you want?" "I came to pick up Lenny's things." I pointed to several trash bags that I had filled with her things. "Here they are. She can take any furniture she likes, but everything must be removed within an hour." "She can't do this." "Why not?" "She's sick." "Sick? What's her problem? Lack of sex." "Come on, Andy. She drank a whole bottle of vodka yesterday, and she's feeling really bad now." "Is she feeling bad? What do you think I look like, Charlotte? And you, her best friend, helped her cheat on her husband. For what? For whom? For some smooth-talking womanizer who described in detail how he had sex with her? Then he came to her work, to her bar, and in front of her husband and a dozen witnesses declared that he urgently needed more. Yes, she's sick. And you too. Now take her things and get out." She began dragging bags towards the door. "And tell her I want Grandma's rings back." 3 days later, half of our furniture was removed. I took everything she liked, including our bed, outside in case someone needed it. I had no idea if she slept with Jones or anyone else on that bed, so I just got rid of her. And then there was a knock on the door. I looked, and it was Lenny. I let her in. "What's happening to you?" she asked. "People are taking my furniture." "This is not your furniture. You left this apartment, abandoned me and everything else, so you no longer have the right to this. Now give me Grandma's rings." "You gave them to me. These are my rings." "Give them back, or I'll rip your finger off and take it away. These rings are for the woman who will be my wife forever, not some prostitute who can be talked into having sex with a bar lady's man who spends his entire life trying to get as many women as possible. Now give them back." She began to back away towards the door, simultaneously removing the rings. I would never have hurt her, but I was very angry. She took off the rings and threw them on the floor. I picked them up and put them in my pocket. "I thought we could talk," she said. "No chance. Go talk to Tyler Jones. He's a good conversationalist. He had enough words to persuade you to be with him. Is this the only person who was able to persuade you to change, or were there others?" She leaned her back against the door and slowly slid down it to the floor. And she started crying. "I just wanted to have fun, Andy. He came to the bar and started talking to me. You were there the first couple of times, but there were so many customers that you didn't notice him. After several visits, he suggested we have a drink somewhere else. You worked nights, so I met him. He was so eloquent. Are you telling me now that anyone who gets close enough can sleep with you?" "No, but—" "Who are you? What happened to my wife?" Charlotte said, "Oh, forget it." Charlotte said what? "She has a bunch of boyfriends. Every time we go out, she tries to find someone for me too. She says you're an asshole and don't want me to have fun." "Did she also tell you that since I've known you, she's been trying to sleep with me too? She pesters me every time when you're not looking. I told you to stay away from her." "She's my best friend. She takes care of me." "Taking care of you was my job. How many guys has she found for you? As I understand it, you found Jones yourself." "Andy." "How many? 2? 5? 10? More than 10? Forget. I don't want to know. You need to leave." She slowly rose to her feet. "Can I at least walk around the apartment and see if there's anything else of mine here? I assure you, nothing in this apartment is yours." "What about the documents for my car?" "They're in one of the bags Charlotte took, along with your photographs, except for our wedding album. I threw it away." She stood in front of the door. I pulled her away, opened the door, and showed her to the exit. She looked at me. "Andy, please. Get out." Her head was down, and she was crying as she walked out into the hallway. I closed the door, closing our marriage. I returned to work. It was hard to look at the dance floor where our collision took place. Gil, the night manager, sat at the bar. I placed a glass of ice water in front of him. "You know, Andy, we have a bar and restaurant at the Capital International Hotel downtown. It's called Oriskany. There's also live piano music every night and a small dance floor. If you want, we can transfer you there. This bar is more prestigious than here, and the salary is better, and you won't have to be here anymore. 3 days later, I was already working in a new bar. I was introduced to the day manager, and she introduced me to the staff before opening. I had to work the day shift. This meant that we arrived at 10 in the morning, prepared the place, opened the doors at 11, and worked until 7 in the evening. The night shift started at 7 and worked until closing, which was usually at 2 in the morning, but sometimes longer. The Capital International Hotel was very prestigious, and I loved being there. The day before I started working at my new job, I filed for divorce and decided to stop shaving and start growing a beard. Lenny and I had little property in common. In fact, when I checked our bank account online, more than half of the money was gone. Lenny apparently got advice from someone, probably Charlotte. Well, the courts would have given her that money anyway. Then I did routine things like canceling our credit card. I'll say cards because we only had one. I canceled it and applied for a new one. Until I received the card, I had to use cash. The phones were in her name, so I opened my own account for that. She was served with Charlotte's divorce papers. I have no idea how she reacted to this. One day it dawned on me that Jones said he slept with Lenny at least 6 times. This meant that I slept with her after he, and possibly others, had already done so. I needed to go to the doctor. I had no symptoms, but I had no idea what the symptoms of such diseases were or what their incubation period was. The results were disgusting. I wanted to kill her. I said before that I would never hurt her, but when I found out she gave me the disease, all bets were off. I could easily strangle her, not to mention that scoundrel Jones. I've never judged people for wanting more sex, but actively seeking out married women or married men is just disgusting. It takes a certain kind of git, and then to be so reckless or uncaring as to pass on the disease to them is beyond the pale. I was going to call Lenny and tell her how I felt about her infecting me, but why, I didn't care anymore. A few days later, her brother Jimmy knocked on my door. I just returned from injections for a disease. I opened it to him. "You son of a bitch. You cheated on my sister, and now she has one of these diseases. I would kill you." There was real hatred in his eyes, and I was scared. "Easy, Tiger," I said, stepping away from him. "If you talk about illness, then everything is the other way around. Your sister cheated on me with at least one guy. She infected me." "This is a lie. She said you will say so. I'm going to beat you up." He moved towards me, and I began to retreat again, but there was not much space in the apartment. "Well," I said as calmly as I could, "before you do that, keep in mind that we have a dozen or more witnesses who heard the man say he slept with her at least 6 times, and she didn't deny it. And then she told me that she did it for fun. For fun, Jimmy. She cheated on me with some scumbag for fun, and Charlotte helped her. She didn't just help, she encouraged her." He looked like he was starting to calm down. Jimmy himself was a difficult person. He was in jail for assault, so I knew he wouldn't hesitate to beat me to a pulp. "I understand that you have no reason to believe me over your sister, but you know me, and you know that I don't lie, much less cheat. The guy you need to talk to is Tyler Jones." I told him where Jones works, and if you can somehow influence your sister, try to get her away from Charlotte. I tried for years, but she didn't listen to me. He looked at me intently, not wanting to believe it, but after a few seconds he turned around and left. 4 days later, I read in a newspaper that someone had left on the bar counter that a potential car buyer was taking a test drive with a new car from a local dealership. Salesman Tyler Jones was in the car with him. The buyer stopped the car, stating that he heard some noise. They both got out of the car, after which the buyer beat Jones. He left Jones on the side of the road and returned the car to the dealership. The newspaper quoted police as saying, "Mr. Jones was a local Casanova, known for causing the end of several marriages over the past few years. Blood tests showed that he had several different diseases. Well done, Jimmy, I thought, laughing at the article, and mentally thanked whoever infected Jones with these diseases. I wonder how many of them Lenny had now. The same newspaper reported that the trailer belonging to Miss Charlotte Williams was completely destroyed by fire. The trailer was not insured, and the damage was total. One day, I'll have a serious talk with Jimmy about his anger management issues, and then I'll buy him a couple of drinks. I wondered where Charlotte would live now and whether Lenny would move in with her, but then I realized that I didn't care anymore. I expected the police to take a statement from me about Jones, and that's what happened, but it didn't lead to anything serious. I got the impression that finding whoever beat Jones was as important to the police as catching traffic offenders. Time passed, and I liked the new bar more and more. I also loved my new beard. At first, I kept it in a slightly untidy state, but then I decided to trim it. After that, I began to receive many compliments from my visitors. I also loved that my divorce was officially finalized. Apparently, when Lenny received the papers, she signed them and sent them back. The day the case went before the judge, she didn't even show up in court. My antibiotics did their job, and I was declared disease-free, but social life was somehow not on my radar. The apartment's lease was coming to an end, and I found a new place closer to work. I didn't replace much of the furniture I got rid of, but I did buy a new bed. My new apartment was so small that the king bed took up almost the entire bedroom, and moving it up 3 floors was no easy task. Luckily, I had friends who helped me. One of my friends, Georgie Patterson, and I have been friends since we were kids. We grew up in the same neighborhood, as did Lenny, Charlotte, and a few other friends. When I called and asked to help me move, he came with a friend. Bryce was his name. When Georgie introduced us, Bryce said, "Andy Buckles, are you the same Andy Buckles?" "Yes, it's me." "Damn it, I know your wife." "My ex-wife," I corrected. "Did you sleep with her too?" Hell no. But I'm married to Charlotte's cousin, and I've certainly heard your name more than once." He didn't like Charlotte and immediately began to tell me what was happening around him lately. He said that after Charlotte's trailer burned down, she and Lenny rented another, furnished trailer in the same trailer park. He told me that he had been in the company of Charlotte and Lenny several times, and Lenny's behavior was extremely erratic. When she was sober, I was a complete asshole to her. But when she drank, it was the other way around, tears and discussion of ways to get me back. Charlotte constantly insisted that I was not worthy of her, but when Lenny was drunk, she defended me and admitted that it was her fault. Bryce also shared that both Lenny and Charlotte blamed me for what happened to Jones. I asked him if Jones was still around. "No," he replied. "I think he called Lenny a couple of times before he got beat up, but she wasn't interested anymore." He also said that Lenny was now a waitress and gave me the name of the place. On my next night off, I went there. I walked in, looked around, and saw her waiting tables. With my new beard, I was sure she wouldn't recognize me. She moved between the tables with her usual dexterity, joking with customers as always. Twice I noticed her swatting away strangers' hands that tried to grab her, something she had to deal with most of her life working in bars. I saw and heard how she cheerfully interacted with clients, but as soon as she turned away, her smile disappeared and a subtle sadness appeared on her face. However, as soon as she started talking to another client again, the smile returned. I didn't know why I came here and was watching her, so I left soon after. I was working the night shift when Lenny walked in with a man. She seemed to have lost several kilos. As far as I knew, she had no idea that I worked here. I took a piece of paper from under the counter and wrote a note. "I don't know if you know, but the woman you are with now cheated on her husband and infected him. Proceed at your own risk." From time to time, I would leave the counter and walk to where I could see the restaurant's dining room. Between the salad and the main course, I saw Lenny go into the ladies' room. I folded the note and walked over to their table. "Sorry, sir," I said, "but they told me to give this to you." I handed him the note. By the time I returned to the bar, he was already leaving the restaurant. I walked back over to where I could see their table. I watched as Lenny sat down and took the note her companion had left in plain sight. She seemed to read it, crumpled it up, and stood up to leave. She walked within 10 feet of me and didn't recognize me, but I saw tears in her eyes. The waitress stood next to their table, unsure of what to do with their order. I approached her. They're both gone, but I know where to send the bill. Part of me enjoyed passing the note and seeing the result, but another part of me thought it was a cheap trick that only a scoundrel would do. I decided that I would never do that again. Once was enough. 2 days later, the call came. It was Lenny. I know it was you. What exactly was I? You sent a note. I lied. I have no idea what you're talking about. It was definitely you. Damn it, what are you talking about? Every time I start a new job, someone calls and says I'm sick and they fire me. When I start dating a man, someone tells him that I am a cheater and have a disease. What does this have to do with me? It's you. I know it's you. I know you hate me, but please, I'm begging you, stop it. I need a job. Please, Andy. Why do you think it's me? I'm not in contact with you and I don't know where you work, so you're blaming the wrong person. This is probably Tyler Jones trying to get back at you for not sleeping with him anymore. Or are you still sleeping with him? He said you were the best he ever had, which makes me think he didn't have anything better, because as far as I remember, you were always just mediocre. Since our divorce, I've learned what good sex is, and it's definitely not like you. No, I don't sleep with him, and that's your fault too. Did she say she would still sleep with him if she could? What is my fault? You beat him up, and now he can't have sex anymore. Oh, what a shame, I said with maximum sarcasm. Maybe you'll find someone else to infect you with diseases, or someone you can infect like me. Go to hell. She hung up. I laughed. I did send one note to her date, but I did not send the others. Perhaps it was Jones. Perhaps he was taking revenge on her, but I think he would rather try to take revenge on the person who beat him. If I were him, I would think it was me, not her. Then I remembered what I told her about learning what good sex was. In fact, the last time I had sex was with her, and it was time to change that. Up to that point, I had not tried to meet anyone or talk to women, but suddenly I realized that the time had come. 3 days later, the couple arrived. They were well-dressed, clearly professionals. They had dinner at a restaurant and then went to a bar for drinks and music. The waitress brought them their first round of drinks while the woman was in the ladies' room. I saw a man pour something into her glass and then take it and stir it. I walked up to the table. Sorry, but I mixed up the drinks. My mistake, I will replace them. I took both glasses, took them behind the bar, and put them aside. I then prepared 2 identical drinks and served them when the woman returned. Then I called the manager and told her what I had done. She called the police. The couple finished their drinks, and the man ordered another round. 2 police officers entered through the back door and went straight to the manager's office. The manager pointed one of our cameras directly at their table. I personally served new drinks. A couple of minutes later, the woman approached the pianist and made an order. The camera recorded a man throwing something into her glass while she was talking to the pianist. As soon as it hit the glass, the police came out and took him to the office. They also confiscated the drink I had left behind the bar. They asked the woman to go with them to the manager's office. Then they all went out the back door. 2 days later, I was ready to start work. It was a little before 7 in the evening. I was in the staff locker room, putting on my company shirt, bow tie, and vest, when the manager said someone was waiting for me. She sat at the end of the bar alone. She's been here since 5 o'clock and only drinks tea, he said. Oh, great, I thought. Lenny is back. I went out and stood behind the bar. The day shift bartender tapped me on the shoulder and nodded toward the woman. I looked, but it wasn't Lenny. I didn't know who it was. I took a towel, dried my hands, threw it on my shoulder where I usually put it, and walked over to her. Hi, I said, trying to sound as casual as possible. I'm Andy. They told me that you are waiting for me. She smiled. Yes, I'm waiting. My name is Dana Alexander, and as far as I understand, I have a lot to thank you for. For what? Because you saved me from a scumbag who tried to sneak something into me, and not once, but twice. Oh, I didn't recognize you. Are you all right? Everything is fine, thanks to you. I could have gotten into real trouble if it weren't for you. Nothing. Bastards. Or rather, men of this type should be in prison. Well, he's there, or was until he was released on bail. I take it your husband wouldn't need to use sleeping pills, so it was a guy? God forbid, she said. He was my colleague, or former colleague. They fired him when they found out what he had done. Have you been dating for a long time? No, this was the first time. He was so nice at work. He was hired 6 months ago, but he only started harassing me 2 weeks ago. I have a rule to never date colleagues, but he managed to persuade me. Did you somehow realize that he might put something in your drink? No, the dinner went great, and he was a true gentleman. He behaved the same way he did in the office, funny, smart, and I admit I thought he was very handsome. Well, that's in the past now. Not really, she said. We still have to see him in court. We? She laughed. Yes, we are. Rest assured, you will be called as a witness. I didn't think about it. Well, it's okay. Putting such a scumbag behind bars is not a problem for me. Dana Alexander sat at the bar for quite a long time, and we talked every time I had a break between clients. I found out that she and that bastard were both architects. If I could go to college, I would like to become an architect myself. She thanked me again and said goodbye, saying she would see me again. A couple of days later, an employee from the district attorney's office came to see me. He wanted to discuss my participation in the trial of the scumbag. Over the next few weeks, I had several meetings with him and other members of the prosecutor's team. But I never saw Dana Alexander. In the meantime, I met a couple of women who became my regular sexual partners. There is nothing better in the world than regular sex. We had fun with them for about 3 months. No pretense of exclusivity for all of us, it was just for fun. If I spent the night with one, the other didn't mind because she knew the next night would be hers. One evening, they were sitting at the bar together when a woman and 2 men walked into the bar. The 3 sat down at a table and drank and danced for a couple of hours. They clearly expressed their feelings freely. The woman kissed both men equally. My girls, Judy and Anna, also danced when they were invited. Between dances, our attention was focused on that trio. The first mentioned the old movie Let Them Talk by Judy, where a woman had 2 husbands, and said that she saw nothing wrong with what the trio did. Anna then suggested that it would be fun to try sex with 2 men at once. What do you say, Andy? Would you participate in something like this? Judy asked me. I laughed. It depends on whom, I said, and went to another client. When I returned to the girls, they were whispering about something. But as soon as I approached, they fell silent. What did you mean when you said, depends on with whom? Anna asked. Well, sex with 2 guys and 1 girl is definitely not on my bucket list. But here I went away again to help another client and lingered there for a couple of minutes, talking with him. We were interrupted by Judy, who loudly tapped her glass on the bar counter. Well, are we going to wait for service here? She said, laughing. I grinned, took the towel from my shoulder, and slowly began wiping down the bar as I walked towards them. They had been sitting in their chairs when I left, but now they both stood up and leaned over the counter, trying to get as close to me as possible. As soon as I approached, Judy whispered, "But what about, however?" I grinned again, then leaned closer to them. "However, I don't know a single normal man who would refuse sex with 2 women," I said quietly. They looked at each other, then sat back down in their chairs at the same time. "Girls, would you like another drink?" "I'll treat you," I offered. They refused, saying it was time for them to leave. I was busy until the end of my shift. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, I returned home. He took a shower, dried himself off, and headed towards the bedroom with the intention of going to bed. I had just thrown the towel on the floor and was ready to jump into bed when someone knocked on the door. I picked up the towel, wrapped it around my waist, and opened the door. "We brought something to eat," Anna said, sliding past me into the apartment with Judy behind her. They had both been to my house before and even spent the night there at different times. "Yeah, we thought you might be hungry," Judy giggled. I looked at them. They looked absolutely incredible. "Where is the food?" I asked. "Who said something about food?" Anna asked. "You said it." "No. I said that we brought something to eat. It's not the same thing." "Yes," Judy confirmed. The rest of the night was absolute heaven. The queen bed, which I thought was too big, turned out to be perfect. We started meeting regularly over the next 3 months. But then Judy went on a cruise with her university friends and came back in love with one of the junior officers on the ship. Anna was promoted and transferred to Phoenix. I missed them, but at the same time I breathed a sigh of relief. I needed a rest. The girls and I had been together for several months when the trial of the guy who put the substance in drinks began. I became a witness for the prosecution, and the bastard got 5 years in prison. The trial lasted only 1 day. I saw Dana Alexander there, and we talked briefly. One evening, Bryce walked into a bar. He laughed and said that Lenny and Charlotte were no longer friends. One day they got drunk, started arguing, and Lenny accused Charlotte of leading her astray and causing the divorce. Charlotte responded by calling Lenny a woman of easy virtue, which, in my opinion, was a clear example of the proverb, "whose cow mooed." Charlotte ended up leaving in a rage, getting into her car, and less than a block later, she hit another car, crashed through a fence, and crashed into a house. She completely totaled her uninsured car. Apparently, she didn't like insurance at all because her trailer wasn't insured either. She was sentenced to 6 months in prison for drunk driving, driving without insurance, and leaving the scene of an accident. She also lost her driver's license for a year. I told Bryce that I was no longer interested in hearing about Lenny and Charlotte, and that I considered that part of my life closed. I was promoted to day manager, so I no longer worked nights except to cover for the night manager during her days off. She did the same for me. One Wednesday evening, we were particularly busy and very busy. This is what you need in the restaurant business. There are a lot of people, which means they eat and drink, which is good. I was sitting at the end of the bar with a glass of ice water when I felt someone tap me on the shoulder. I turned around, and it was Dana Alexander. I stood up and turned to her. "Good evening," I said. "How are you?" "Okay, thank you." "What about you?" "I'm fine, thank you." "How can I help?" "Yes, nothing special. We came over for dinner, and I just decided to say hello." "Fine. Have a nice evening." I watched as she joined the couple, and the 3 of them headed into the restaurant. Later in the evening, I helped a woman put her husband into a taxi. He had drunk too much. I made a mental note to remind our servers not to overdo it with alcohol for guests. I watched the taxi drive away, and when I turned around, I almost ran into Dana. "I was looking for you," she said. "Here I am." "I see. Still looking out for people, right?" "Just part of the job, ma'am," I said in an exaggerated Texas accent. "Look, I don't want to seem intrusive, and honestly, I've never done this, but would you like to have a drink with me sometime?" She quickly added, "As gratitude, of course." I just looked at her. Of all the things to expect, asking Dana Alexander out on a date never even crossed my mind. Sorry," she said, "I probably embarrassed you. You must be married or in a relationship. If so, forgive me." She turned to leave. Wait a minute." I grabbed her hand and turned her towards me. "I am not married and not in a relationship. It's just that no beautiful woman has ever asked me out on a date before, and I'm honestly still in shock. I'd love to have a drink with you." She smiled. "Great. What about Friday? Or are you working?" "Friday is perfect." "What time and where should I pick you up?" "Well, since I invited you, I'll pick you up at 7. Just tell me where." I gave her my address. I was ready at 7 o'clock when she arrived. I didn't know what to wear, and for the first time in my life, I understood how women feel before a first date. I ended up choosing trousers, a jacket, and a tie. "Do you mind if we change plans and have dinner instead of drinks?" she asked. I missed lunch. "No, of course," I answered. We went to a very nice restaurant, had dinner, danced, and then she took me home. When we arrived at my house, she got out of the car as if she was going to walk me to the door. I thought that this would be enough to switch roles and said that there was no need to accompany her. "How can I kiss you goodbye then?" she asked. I walked around the car and said, "I can handle this myself." I hugged her and said, "Thank you for a wonderful evening." Then I kissed her, not on the cheek, but directly on the lips. She got into the car and drove away. I was literally jumping up and down on the way to my apartment, not believing my luck. My good mood quickly evaporated when I realized that I had not taken her phone number. As I usually do when undressing, I took everything out of my pockets, including my jacket pockets. When I reached into the left pocket of my jacket, I found a business card. It was Dana's business card, and on the back she wrote her phone number. Looks like she put it there while we were dancing. It was a business card with the address of her company on it. I didn't call her over the weekend, but on Monday I ordered 24 roses to be delivered to her office. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I picked up the bar. "Oriskany, can I help?" The name, of course, is not the best, but it was one of the most popular establishments in the city. The man who opened it served aboard the aircraft carrier US Oriskany in World War II and named his establishment in his honor. There was even a large model of this ship behind the bar. "Is this Andy?" "It's me." "Hello, this is Dana. I just received wonderful roses. Thank you." "Please, madam." I paused and continued, "I was going to call you later to see if you would like to have dinner with me again." "I wish I could. When are you planning?" "Well, today is Monday, and Friday is usually considered a big evening day, so what about tomorrow?" She laughed. "I don't know where you read such logic, but tomorrow suits me." She gave me her address, and I suggested meeting at 7. It was a very beautiful house, in a very good area, and we had a wonderful evening again. Over the next few weeks, we met at least 3 times a week. I found out that she got divorced after 5 years of marriage because they simply fell out of love with each other. They remained good friends. She even said that they are better friends now than they were during their marriage, and that he now lives on the West Coast. The house she lived in was their home, and she got it in the divorce. I almost felt sorry for the poor fellow. He was paying a mortgage on a beautiful house that he couldn't live in. I felt even worse the first time Dana and I made love in this house, on their bed, and we showered together in the same shower they once shared. We were happy for about 6 months. We laughed, joked, went out often, and every time I was grateful that I worked during the day, except for those times when I had to cover for the night manager. As usual, I called her to find out when she wanted to meet again. "Sorry, Andy, but my ex is in town and we're going to have dinner with him." "Oh, okay. Have fun," I muttered. My first thought was that she was telling me that they just fell out of love with each other and are now more friends than they were in marriage. I waited 2 days before calling her again. Andy, Cliff was her ex's name, still here, and we're discussing some business. And then, my company has a deadline for a new building project. We need to check the calculations. I heard stories about sex with an ex, and began to wonder if she was sleeping with Cliff. I was in a quandary. I had no reason to believe that she was sleeping with Cliff, but I also had no reason to suspect Lenny of cheating. The only difference is that Lenny and I were married, but Dana and I were not. I didn't like it, but she was free to sleep with whoever she wanted. However, part of me wanted to know the truth. Part of me wanted to ask her, but the other part didn't want to know if she was sleeping with him. Damn it. Damn, damn, damn. I called her, and the call went straight to voicemail. I called her office. "Sorry, but Miss Alexander is unavailable right now. Leave a message." "No, thank you." A week has passed. I was in my manager's small office when I called her again. She replied, "Hello, what's happened?" "Well, we haven't spoken in over a week, and I just wanted to know." "Oh, Andy, I've been so busy." Let me ask you a question. Certainly. Cliff still in town? Why are you asking? Is he still here? Why are you worried about him? Then I just blurted out. Are you sleeping with him? Then I heard only silence before she ended the call. That was all I needed to know. I walked back into the restaurant and kitchen to check on how things were going. I walked around gloomy all day until my shift ended and I went home. As usual, I took everything out of my pockets, took off my clothes, and went to the shower. After my shower, I put on my robe, made myself a gin and tonic, and sat down to watch the news. I settled into the chair, leaned back, turned on the TV, and took a sip. Before I had time to relax, someone started knocking on the door so hard that it seemed as if it was about to fly off its hinges. I stood up, put my glass down, and opened the door. Miss Dana Alexander burst into the room and began. You're an idiot, tactless idiot. I am a free woman over 21 years old and can do what I want. No insecure idiot is going to change that. If I want to sleep with my ex-husband and 20 other men, that's my right, just like yours. I raised my hand and interrupted her. Wait a minute. Let's clear something up. I have no desire to sleep with your ex-husband and 20 other men. She just stood there looking at me. What are you talking about? You just said I have the right to sleep with your ex-husband and 20 other men, and I said I don't want to. That's not what I said. That's exactly what you said. Well, that's not what I meant. Oh, okay. Well, then continue your monologue. She took a deep breath. The point is, you can't tell me who to sleep with, just like I can't tell you. I didn't want to sleep with anyone but you. You didn't want to. What do you mean? Didn't want to. Don't you want to know? Not if you slept with your ex-husband and 20 others. Damn it, I don't sleep with anyone but you. That's what I was trying to tell you. Then where have you been for more than a week? I was working, fool. Our project is behind schedule, and if we don't catch up, we'll be fined. You didn't have time for me, but you had time for Cliff. We were working on a deal for my house. He's getting married again and can't afford to pay for 2 houses, so he wanted to know if I would take on the mortgage and buy the house. I didn't need to do this because in the divorce I got the house, but I didn't see the point in torturing him any further. I can afford it, so we agreed that I would pay the mortgage and he would pay a certain amount each month until the house was paid off. Everything is quite civilized. As I said, he and I are still friends. We just stopped loving each other. Where did he stay? At your place? Are you going to be jealous of me for the rest of your life? Yes. Where did he stay? At my sister's, 4 miles from my house. And you didn't sleep with him? This is a stupid question. Of course I slept with him. He was my husband. She gave me back some of my sarcasm. I mean, did you sleep with him this time? Are you not listening to me? No, I didn't sleep with him. What about those 20 other men? Bastard. Pour me a drink, then take off your clothes, and I'll show you who I'm sleeping with. I poured her a drink, poured myself one too, and we both drank in silence. After which I stood up and began to take off my robe. Okay, let's go to the bedroom, Dana said, heading there first. We spent the rest of the evening and night in bed, and she showed me who her only man really was. The next morning I woke up before her. She was fast asleep, and I just lay there, thinking about everything that had happened. Still, it seems I was too suspicious. I should have trusted her more. After that, our relationship returned to normal. We started meeting often again, spending time together, and everything was going great. I was happy that I didn't ruin our relationship with my suspicion. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one. Click to the next one. Click to the next one. Click to the next